Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Common Sense with Dr. Ben Carson. I'm your host, Ben Carson, and I'm here today with a wonderful friend and a great patriot, Bob Unanue, the CEO of Goya Foods, who started working there when he was 10 years old, a company started by his grandparents. And under his leadership, it has grown exponentially. And Goya Foods is one of the most recognized and trusted name brands in the world today. But the thing about Bob that's so impressive is he understands the need to give back. And for over 85 years, Goya Foods has had a program of supporting various charities through scholarships and community support through their Goya Gives program. Now they have the Goya Cares initiative, which focuses specifically on human trafficking, which is a huge problem. I don't think many people recognize how big a problem it is. And combating human trafficking and bringing awareness to this is a tremendous contribution to our society. You know, there are more slaves in the world today than there have ever been at any point in time, and they are primarily victims of human trafficking. Hundreds of thousands of people affected just in the United States, not to mention the rest of the world. So, Bob, I want to commend you on bringing attention to this and not just talking about it, but actually doing something about it. And welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carson. And I know it's your platform also, and it's about awareness of this and human trafficking. There's 40 million people a year, and it's a $250 billion business. But our focus, quite honestly, is with the children, and it seems like the children are getting younger and younger every day.
Mhm.
And it's not just the trafficking; it's the mental health. It's alarming. I have 13 grandchildren, a 14th on the way, 6 children, and I have a 15-year-old granddaughter. And the kids these days, at that age, these young teenagers, 1 in 5, I even heard a bigger number this morning, contemplate suicide.
Yeah.
This whole thing of COVID and shutting us down, taking away our purpose. We have to have a purpose. Like we were saying, at 10 years old, at a Christmas break, it was the first time I worked on the production line, and my dad gave me $20 at the end of the week. But I still have that 20. But but anyway, you need a purpose. I was doing a monotonous job, and it felt like I was there an hour, and I was there five. I look at the clock, 5 minutes had gone by, because when you're young like that, time goes by so slow. And, you know, so imagine taking our children and taking adults, and the government saying, you're not essential. We were working because we're an essential business, but you're not essential. And so you don't need a purpose. You don't need a reason to get up every day. And for a child, a day is like a lifetime.
Well,
And
it's a good thing our Savior doesn't say that, and he thinks everybody's essential. Uh, but let me ask you this. You could be doing anything you wanted to do. You could be cruising around the world on luxurious yachts and playing golf all day. What got you interested in this?
well, working in the company all the years, I worked at least a half a day, at least 12 hours a day, and I know you do that and much more. Um, so, you know, uh, we were too busy to think of anything else, but and to play golf. If you're working 12, 14 hours days, and you want to see your family, golf takes at least 6, 7 hours, and I didn't really have the time for that. But our purpose every day should be God, family, work, and school. And you know, optimistically, that's the goal. I believe are the values of the Latino community, and as that community grows, I'm hopeful that we can focus on those values. But the reason I got involved in this trafficking, first of all, I was not aware of this. You know, you can say I grew up privileged. I mean, we didn't always have money, but the privilege I had was having a mother and father that loved me. They died early on. My father was 48 and my mom was 58. Uh, I was a young man of in the 20, my early 20, 21, one of six. And you know, I grew up in a bubble, I believe, a parallel universe with when you look at these kids. I mean, uh, I've I was just got back from Costa Rica, and I had met this young girl with a group from Goya and at Space Center Houston, and this young girl had been trafficked from 7 years old to 11 years old, but she was trafficked by her mother.
Oh my.
And when you're, you know, when you're young, I heard the saying, "Nobody loves me. My hands are cold." And the answer was, "Your mama loves you. Sit on your hands." But
Mm.
imagine that your mother uh, has sold you off either for trafficking or body parts, or even more sinister. Uh, we're not valuing life, and so I was not. I was living in a bubble, not aware that these things existed, and so I ran into Eduardo Berastegui a couple years ago, who was doing. Previously, he had done this movie called Bella, which had to do with abortion, and he's very famous. Well, he was a heartthrob artist in Mexico, but and he was doing not too good movies. He decided to dedicate his life to God and to do good movies, and he did this movie called The Sound of Freedom, which actually is not out yet. You've seen it, uh, about trafficking and rescuing kids, 7 years old, 6 years old. It's stories about Tim Ballard, played by Jim Caviezel. And when I saw this movie, it was so shocking, and I know it was for you and Candy. And you know, this exists. So you know that awareness is what we're focused on, and we're working with Monique Burr's foundation to bring uh, this awareness into schools for different ages, for the children, the parents, the teachers, uh, and we're working with different organizations on the ground, the grassroots, that really do something about it. Also, we're working internationally with an organization called ICMEC, International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We're putting QR codes on our cans so that we can uh, take them to the Goya Cares website. And so it was basically, I was not aware of this, and then it opens up just a horrific reality. The biggest industry in the world is trafficking, drugs, and arms sale, the three biggest. And at the end of the day, with all the things we're seeing in today's world, I believe it's follow the money. It's about making money and exploiting each other, but especially exploiting the children who are
Yeah, it's
so
so
and
important to get the children to understand the traps that people lay for them. And you know, I think that the movie that you mentioned, The Sound of Freedom, is look forward to that being released, because that really, I think, is very touching. But you know, there's like two children who are trafficked every 60 seconds. I mean, since we've started this program, You know, there's more than a dozen kids that have been trafficked, a couple of dozen kids that have been trafficked, just that quickly, and how pervasive this is in our society right now. And the number of people convicted of federal human trafficking offenses from 2011 to 2019 increased by 84%. I mean, to show you how rapidly this thing is growing. And, you know, I just, I'm drawn to the fact that you've devoted so much attention to this. In fact, you had a Super Bowl ad on to bring attention to this. And it's going to make all the difference in the world for a lot of young people. But people say that human trafficking is going on right in plain sight, right in the midst of where we live and work every day. How is that possible?
Again, Dr. Carson, I think it's the financial incentive. There's 6 steps to trafficking. One is grooming or befriending. So you get the confidence of the child, and that's where, like you were saying, the traps that are laid. Oh, I'm your friend. I care for you. Hey, and then the second step is intoxication. So the drugs come into the picture very, very quickly.
Mm.
Isolating, alienating. Uh, you know, a lot of people nowadays come from broken homes. The city of Brookshire, where we're in right here, 70% of the children have no father present. We're
Mm.
attacking the father, we're attacking the family, we're devaluing life. So, and it's more acute in the Hispanic community. So these kids and young adults are vulnerable. So they are easily isolated and alienated from their family, and their family becomes this abuser who may seem to care, but they only care about using and abusing and making money off of the victim.
Well, why don't they? Why don't these children and these women who are trapped run away when they get a chance?
Because they've been told a story that nobody cares about them, that they're the abuser is, it's a Stockholm syndrome. The abuser is the only one that cares about them. They're their family, and uh, they end up going back because really they're in a society. Hillary Clinton wrote the book "It Takes a Village," which I never liked from the beginning, because the village is not going to love your child as much as
The family.
mother or father should. But you know, and that's why the big cities in this country are such a disaster, because when you're a number, you're nothing, and nobody cares about you. Uh, and we all need to be cared for and valued. And people don't know there's no father there sometimes to uh, instill faith, and that God has chosen each one of us, and we're valued, and we have purpose. Um, and that's so important. And so those steps, go from alienating, isolating to desensitizing. The last step is capitalizing. So really, at the end, this is the person's a product, and
And they can
then
make an awful lot of money off of just one child, can't they?
sure, and they're used. I mean, the stories are used multiple times a day, and then they have a useful shelf life, if you will. It sounds horrible, but then when they're no longer useful for that, they probably their body parts can be sold.
Didn't know whether that was really true or whether that was an urban legend that they actually would take people and kill them and use their body parts because they can derive a lot of income from that as well.
I think anything that evil can exist and does exist. Whether there's proof, it's very It's a very exclusive thing, I believe, and I have no proof of it. But just like you have faith in God, there's also a devil,
Yeah.
and that is when you think about the amount of evil that's in the world. I mean, you look at wars, and we haven't learned a lot since the beginning of time. God gave us our lives and our brains, and we've he created us, but man has created the ability to destroy each other and to kill each other. So that hasn't changed, and the only thing that's going to change that is to love each other and care for each other.
Well, there are certain people who are likely to run into some of these trafficked kids, police officers and teachers and various individuals. Is there anything that would be a tip off to them that this might be a kid who's being trafficked?
Really, for the common person and like myself, if you're not aware of it, then you're not catching that. But you see, speaking of Costa Rica, I had a, a person I know. Their husband went to Costa Rica for a business thing, and unaware and a little bit naive, perhaps, he said, "This I went out, was playing golf, and it was so great. I see all these grandparents, these grandfathers with their granddaughters playing golf. It was so nice to see that. You know, they're not the granddaughter, and you know, when you see a person uh, that it's not a match, you see a lot of young women dolled up, and they possibly look like older, women, but they're not. They're kids, and so that's something we're doing. What we're doing is we're going into classrooms. We're coming up with those uh, things that identify these kids and make them aware. Uh, but the child is very vulnerable to when you have a home that's broken and there's more of them every day. Uh, the father might think the mother has it. The mother might think the father has it, uh, and that's where they're vulnerable.
Well, who should you call if you suspect that a child is being trafficked?
Uh, you got to call the authorities. You have to call the authorities and
And hope they're not in on it.
hope they're not in on it. Yeah. Um, we have a QR codes on our label. Uh, that you can scan. It goes to a national hotline for trafficking,
Yeah.
and that does exist. And then the organizations like ICMEC, International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they can do facial recognition. So you have a missing child, you can follow up on that child and say, hey, this looks out of place.
Can people go to the Goya Cares website and get the number for the national hotline?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. I know Sarah Carter. I think you know her also, investigative reporter. She came back with some pictures of some children. She showed me separately of a young boy, a little beaten, and you look into his eyes, and it's a shell of a person, and you can see that they're empty. Also, people who are trafficked, um, they never look up. They are looking down. They don't make eye contact with people. They don't speak. Um, so you can see. I saw a situation once in California where this older guy was with this young girl, and she was having a hot chocolate, and she just was in her thing, in her world, not making contact with anybody. Uh, by the time I went to get somebody, they were gone. But it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
to see, these children
Right.
abused. But as we create this awareness, more and more people now, when I don't go anywhere without looking around and profiling pretty much people, uh, and the United States is the largest consumer of sex trafficking, and again, the victim is younger and younger, probably Hispanic, and so it's I got start getting more keen on recognizing.
But one question I want to ask you, Bob, is there anything more that the federal government or law enforcement could be doing to help ameliorate the situation with human trafficking?
Yes, first of all, the border is just out of control. While we have people coming in to the border, on the one hand, they're using children, the cartels. The cartels are making billions of dollars. Their money is coming in a lot easier because again, they're using children for the distribution and running of children and drugs, and the two go hand in hand. And they're killing our children also with the fentanyl coming from China through Mexico into the U.S. So we need to secure the borders, uh, and this administration has just let the floodgates open up. But we've allowed not only trafficking, but we've allowed these cartels to make exorbitant amounts of money. They're better armed than the Mexican government. They're actually not only better armed, but the military with all these money incentives, they're complicit in this trafficking. The corruption. We used to be a nation that defended the helpless and stood for freedom, but like you mentioned, Dr. Carson, it's the freedom is slavery. We're putting these kids into slavery. We're allowing slavery. We're allowing slavery like never in the history of this country.
It has accelerated with the lack of having a border. And if there was some way that we could get the government, our officials, to recognize, you can't be using this for political purposes. We're talking about the lives of innocent people, innocent children, just being absolutely decimated and destroyed. How can you possibly want some kind of political advantage when people are dying? I just don't understand it. But, we have to keep pushing that message. Maybe eventually their conscience will be seared and they will feel a need to do something. But the other thing uh, that is very interesting is the demand for these trafficked children and for child pornography and stuff is skyrocketing. And the place where it's worse is right here in the United States of America. Any thoughts about how we get that under control? That's a tough one.
It is. We are definitely the biggest consumers of this of trafficking and drugs. And I think we need to return back to work and purpose, God, family, and work. We kept working under COVID because we're an essential business, but work is essential. If you don't have a reason to get up every day, you lose your purpose, you lose your spirit. And that's what's happening. There's millions of people out there that are not working, that don't want to work.
Right.
We've created in some ways a pajama class, you know, whereas you have the working class. And I think this COVID thing was, with the false narrative of the vaccine and all this bringing people instead of. I believe that movement that keep moving. If we had kept moving more people during COVID instead of locking ourselves in and fomenting and incubating this COVID, which was created, I believe, in this lab. But if we keep moving, uh, we would have uh, licked this thing. I believe, and but we need a reason to a purpose to get up every day, and we need to get together. We've incentivized the single family for too long. I think since the New Deal, that if you're a single person, you're going to receive more benefit or more reward, if you will, for having a single family. And these single families, we're losing our kids, we're losing our purpose, our self worth, and it's a very tough thing to do. I mean, you can throw money at things. Money is not going to solve it. We need to get back. I was very, uh, uh, I love seeing not this football player get hurt, but the fact that he died on the field and all these $1 million players, multi-million dollar players on their knees. Because when it comes down to it, that's what we need. That's where we need to turn is to God. And so, and sportscasters praying on television and all that. We need to turn to God. Uh, it doesn't take a village. It takes our faith in God. This Asbury University in Kentucky. This revival, I see and believe there's the revival coming back that we need to turn closer to God.
And what you say is so vital because the things that have been under attack in our society are our faith and our families. And as those things deteriorate, it's easy to understand why people become attracted, to child pornography and all kinds of distortions. And there's an old saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Again, if people are engaged in useful, practical things, you're not going to have these same kinds of things happening. So, um, other question I wanted to ask you is, some of the big companies, food companies like Ben and Jerry's and General Mills, have been named in a New York Times article about companies that are allowing, child labor to be abused. And of course, that's all connected with potential abuse and trafficking. Goya Foods doesn't have that problem. Uh, what have you done specifically to prevent that?
Well, we're uh, pretty much we have a broad spectrum of employees. There's e-verify systems as far as if someone's coming in. Everybody has to be properly vetted. As big as we've become, we call ourselves La Gran Familia Goya. So every person in our company is part of that family, and we cry together, we laugh together, and we know our employees. I can't be an undercover boss because uh, I walk the factories, I walk the warehouses, and I travel to our different locations, and we have wonderful people at every location, and so we're involved. Not just we're involved, just like we're involved in the communities when we're giving food away and things like that. We're also involved in our own community. We have scholarships for the children of our employees, and things like that. So the family environment is so important. We have get-togethers. We bring in priests and religious to start you know every ceremony that we have, but it's just involved. It's just about loving your and caring for your your family, your employee family, as your own family, and and knowing, looking into everyone's eyes and knowing who they are, and a lot of our, as far as the physical work, a lot of our production is has become higher speed and more automated. So we're not out picking fields and stuff like that, but we're uh, a pretty sophisticated and mechanized uh, company.
Well, the it starts at the top, and the attitude of the people at the top. And I've been to your factory and walked through with you and seen the camaraderie that exists there. And that kind of atmosphere is obviously not one that it's going to exploit child labor laws or allow for trafficking to occur in its midst. And I want to thank you, Bob, for bringing the attention of the nation and of the world to this issue. And I think we just have to be persistent. We have to keep pushing and helping people to understand that these are our fellow human beings. Their lives are being destroyed. How can we sit there nonchalantly and just say, "Oh well, that's life"? That doesn't have to be life. It doesn't have to be that way if we all get involved. And thank you and thank Goya Foods for what you've been doing for these children and for our nation.
Well, I thank you, Dr. Carson. Likewise, you could have been relaxing, retired on the beach, or be anywhere, and you chose to be the secretary of HUD. You chose to not retire. You chose to create the American Cornerstone Institute, and you're such an important and iconic figure. I hate the fact that you're being attacked in ways in Detroit with your name on the schools and things like that, because anything good they want to attack, and we will be persecuted. And you have done such an incredible job, and your voice is so important, and you are so iconic, and your voice is so necessary in our future. I love you, and you're an inspiration.
Well, we love you. We love your company, and may God continue to bless you.
Amen. God bless.
I hope you enjoyed that fascinating discussion with Bob Unanue, a true patriot, a great American who truly cares about other people. And that's something that we all need to emulate. While the government and law enforcement play an important role in this whole trafficking situation, it's eyes in the community that will make the difference. It's caring in the community that will make the difference. And for our assignment for this week, I would like for you to find out if there's an organization in your community that deals with trafficking and help them. Volunteer, make a donation, get involved, because that's the only way we're ever going to be able to stop this. And that's it for this week. Please subscribe for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. And tell your friends and family about us, rate us, review us, and spread common sense. We want it to truly be common once again. And don't forget our pillars: faith, liberty, community, and life. See you next week.